Hello, and welcome back to Tommy's Top Picks. We are back today with a video going over everything that you need to know about the Amazing Spider-Man reboot number 1 coming out this week today. So, Murphy, what do we need to know?
So, just in general, what Tommy and I have talked about doing for these new run of videos is anytime there's an exciting new run of a comic coming out, whether it be Amazing Spider-Man #1 or we've got our eyes on Zdarsky taking over Batman, something like that, we'll look into what you definitely need to know going into it. We'll try to keep them short, but bear with me. For this one, Amazing Spider-Man #1, it's got a new creative team. It's a new #1, and they're promising that it's going to be a huge year for Amazing Spider-Man.
The biggest year yet.
That's what they say. So, Amazing Spider-Man, for any of you who don't know, has had quite a bit of change over the last 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dan Slott, who took over after a giant community of writers and artists were in charge of Spider-Man, finally left the run after, 10 years? Close to, something like that?
Something, yeah.
And so then Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley took over. And
I was so excited for Ryan Ottley. I was so excited.
It was great, though. His art was so good. His Green Goblin's probably one of my favorites.
Well, it lasted.
Yeah. But so, about half the way through their run, maybe 2/3 of the way, Patrick Gleason took over as the main artist and started making his, name, especially coming from DC.
He's done a great job.
After that, yeah, he did. He's done a great job. So then he, along with Zeb Wells, who's now going to be the new writer, them and a whole team of, I think it was something like 15 writers and artists, did a 19-issue arc called Beyond. And we're going to go over all of the Spencer run and the Beyond run to get you prepared for this new issue. So, what Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley tried to do to start off their run was, after all the craziness of Doc Ock taking over as Superior Spider-Man and then Peter getting his mind back and everything back with Dan Slott, they wanted to take it back to the basics of Spider-Man, where it's just him trying to make his way and figure out how to be responsible and be great, It definitely also, for the first time ever, brought back Mary Jane, for the first time in 10 years, I'd say, as a love interest for Peter.
As it should be.
Yeah. The last time they had been together was right before Brand New Day started, which kind of shook up everything and deleted Mary Jane and Peter's marriage from the 80s and took him back to basics for the most part. But what they did was Peter had to go back to school because all of the stuff that Otto Octavius had done as Peter Parker was clearly Otto Octavius. So he was accused of plagiarism and had to go prove that he was actually still smart. So all the while Peter's trying to figure out all this new stuff, Nick Spencer decided that he wanted to slowly introduce a new big bad named Kindred. Now, Kindred took, I'd say, his big reveal wasn't until issue 50.
Yeah, I did get there. I did get past that.
Yeah, his first reveal, though, was issue, 4.
Yeah.
It took a very long time, and he slowly built up Kindred as this nightmarish demon who hates Peter Parker so much. And like I said, it took a long time for him to get Kindred going, But what he continuously was doing was bringing villains together. You know, one of the major arcs that I'm not going to go over fully, but it was called Hunted, and Craven.
Oh, that one was wild.
That one was crazy. And Craven the Hunter basically put all of the animal-themed heroes and villains in Central Park, and
in a bubble.
Vulture ends up leading a group of villains to, try and survive. So what he did, though, was just continuously keeps bringing back old villains and trying to revamp them in, new and exciting ways, and just continuously building these different teams. Like, so there's a Sinister Six, there's so many different ones. But then he started getting really into Resurrection. And Sin Eater, who was a villain from way back, he killed Gene DeWolf, for any of you real old heads. They brought him back, and what he started doing was using his magic shotgun to absorb the powers and the sins of any villain that he shot. And he just kept appearing as a nightmare, and he was clearly working for Kindred. And the final thing he did was he shot the Green Goblin. He shot him, took his sins, took his power away also, so effectively making Norman Osborn, who's currently still the same way, a normal guy. Like, just a nice dude. For the first time since the 60s. But then Kindred decided to unleash all of those sins on New York City, and they basically ended up taking over spider heroes. Sorry. My stuff's about to die.
Oh, good.
So he released the sins, and they ended up taking over all the spider heroes, like Spider-Gwen and Miles and
Spider-Woman, right?
Jessica
She was
Drew,
there. Yeah.
Spider-Woman, yeah. And they just went on a rampage trying to kill everybody. So Peter had to eventually confront Kindred and was able to, get it all put aside. At that point, Kindred gets captured by the Kingpin and Norman Osborn, but Norman Osborn's still, at that point, faking that he is still the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing they did, they kind of cooled off after the Last Remains arc, where Kindred had his big coming out.
I feel like that just kind of stopped.
Yeah, so they had to take a breather.
Yeah.
So they continued then with more of the bringing villains together with King's Ransom. So King's Ransom ended up Spider-Man and Boomerang were putting together the tablet.
That was
life,
fun. That was really fun.
Lifeline tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they put that together, and
Boomerang grew on me.
Villains.
Boomerang grew on me.
I like how they did Boomerang too.
Make him a roommate.
That's not something that's need to know.
No, but it's fun.
It's fun. But then that, and then another arc called The Chameleon Conspiracy got the Foreigner and Arcade together, and Chameleon, and continuously just kept bringing more and more bad guys together.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I just read The Chameleon Conspiracy today, and and then there's the whole thing about Peter's sister too.
Yeah, so Peter's sister might be a clone.
Yeah,
so many clones all the time.
Yeah, there was just this whole thing. It was like, well, maybe I am, but I don't want to know if I am. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I couldn't live with myself. No, I am who I am.
I think that was my problem with Nick Spencer's whole run, is there was just too much confusion.
Yeah.
About who people were.
Yeah. And then even they were confused of who they were.
Yeah, everyone's always confused. But so the next big thing, and it was the lead up to the end, is called not yet.
Not yet.
No, I didn't do anything for Sinister War.
Okay.
But the next big event is called Sinister War. And Sinister War is Kindred putting basically almost like Suicide Squad style worms in all the villains' heads and telling them that whoever can kill Spider-Man and bring him to Kindred will be like his number one. So it turns into 6 different teams of 6 villains.
Oh, jeez.
All trying to kill Spider-Man. And turns out Doc Ock doesn't like being controlled.
Right.
So he figures out how to stop it.
Right.
But that's the whole thing that leads into the end is basically all these villains just beating the crap out of Peter Parker. Just everywhere. Like, he can't get away. Everywhere he turns, there's another villain.
Oh,
and it gets so far as he brings back Morlun. So the Sin Eater tried to find Morlun, and it didn't work because Morlun's just crazy.
Right.
And so he's just out and about, you know. And then the Sin Eater comes back too, and it's just an insane amount of villains all beating up on Spider-Man to prepare him for Kindred. Now, I'm not really going to go into the specifics of who Kindred is because A, it's complicated. for not a lot of reason, in my opinion. As much as I like the story, it was just overly complicated. It could be 2 clones. It can be all this stuff. But what I will mention is that Kindred is the result of all the deals with Mephisto.
That just seems to be the root of all the problems.
Yeah, basically. So pretty much they go back and they go to the One More Day stuff. And Mephisto's telling Doctor Strange how Norman Osborn sold Harry's soul. And that's what led to all the problems that have happened. Like, he sold Harry's soul way back in the day for fame and fortune and power. And then Peter makes the deal with him to get rid of his marriage, and Mephisto's talking about how he really just loves watching, love die, right, and that people suffer. But it turns out in reality, you see like a one little shot of a future that Mephisto was trying to stop, and it was Mayday Parker as Spider-Woman, and she's the one who basically in the future defeats Mephisto and stops him from getting his reign of terror.
Right.
So all the stuff Mephisto's been doing is to try and keep Mary Jane and Peter from having a daughter.
I wonder who it could be.
Yeah. Turns out that it all backfired on him. Doctor Strange wins a bet for Harry's soul, freeze his soul. It got really complicated. That's just the long and the short of it. But it ends with Peter and Mary Jane happily together. So, fast forward a couple weeks after that, and all of a sudden, a new megacorp called Beyond is everywhere. And Peter's clone, Ben Reilly, ends up coming back into the picture. Now, Ben Reilly, for those of you who don't know, has had a very complicated history as well.
Fans love Ben Reilly.
Gotta love Ben Reilly. But he's a clone of Peter Parker from back in the 90s, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Clone Saga was the 90s.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, he ended up taking over as Spider-Man for a while. At one point, he comes back as the Jackal. Like, he's just all in all, just a very tortured individual because he has all the memories of Peter Parker, but he's not Peter Parker, you know? He knows that it wasn't his life.
Right.
But basically, going back then even to Superior Spider-Man, Beyond has bought up the remnants of the company that Doc Ock started as Peter Parker, Parker Industries. And along with that, because Doc Ock was who he had copywritten the name Spider-Man. So they own the rights to Spider-Man. So they put Ben Reilly in, like, a superhero could possibly ever need to be successful. They gave it all to Ben Reilly. And he went to Peter and was trying to talk to him about it. And he wanted to be Spider-Man too. But in reality, Beyond didn't want Spider-Man to be there. During a fight, though, with the UFOs, Peter Parker ends up getting absolutely destroyed and gets put in a coma. And Ben's suit being so high-tech is why he's able to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter ends up spending most of this whole run, which is the interim between the 2+ years of Nick Spencer and the new stuff. He spends most of it in a hospital bed or recovering. But Beyond is just mega evil. No one really knows that yet, but it starts becoming clear pretty quickly. But one of the things that happens is Beyond wants to know who Spider-Man is, but part of Ben's deal with Beyond is that he will not give up Peter Parker's identity. So Beyond removes the memories of like certain memories that would give away Peter Parker.
Okay.
And they do that with Ashley Kafka too, who was working at Ravencroft and ended up coming on as like a superhero therapist for Beyond. But as Peter starts getting better, and Ben starts realizing how evil Beyond really is, Beyond takes it one step further and starts removing memories that Ben didn't tell them to remove. So they do that with Kafka as well, but they end up putting all the sins of Norman Osborn into Ashley Kafka. And she becomes Queen Goblin, who's a badass.
Oh, I remember seeing that, yeah.
Yeah, she's a badass. And, you know, Kafka's been a therapist in the Spider-Man universe forever, so one of her powers is called the Goblin Stare, and she basically just, like, holds you down and makes you, like, hate yourself. Like Peter at one point wants to kill himself, and he overcomes it because he's like, this isn't the first time I've been this low, you know? But what happens when they remove Ben's memories is Ben loses sense of right and wrong.
Okay.
And he can see that there are holes in his memory. And all he wants is to get them back. Like, he starts leaving people, like, he leaves Mary Jane and a friend of hers at the mercy of Queen Goblin so he can rescue his girlfriend.
Right.
He's like, yeah, no, that's not my problem. Like, starts, you know, and that's when Peter has to really come out. Like, he was training with Black Cat and Captain America to, like, get better, but he was not ready.
Right.
So Ben has completely lost sense of right and wrong, and all he wants to do now is take the fight to Beyond. Everyone. But he wants to get his memories back, which once he gets in, you can go to the next slide. Once he gets to Beyond, and he confronts Maxine Danger, the CEO, she tells him pretty much, Peter Parker has your memories. If you want them back, you got to get them from him. Like, that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, you want the memories of, like, that you lost, that we took from you? Sorry, they're gone unless you take them from Spider-Man. So, Spider-Man shows up to try and help Ben Reilly because he knows that he's, in over his head. And Ben Reilly's like, why are you trying to sabotage me? Why do you hate me? Like, why do you not want me to have this life? Like, and Peter's trying his best to make sure that doesn't happen. He's saying, like, I do want to help you, but I'm not putting that machine on my head. So on and so on. But it turns into Peter. I mean, he religiously beats that ass. Like, he just does. He's not happy about it, but he wins the day. And Beyond basically liquidated part of their building. Like, not the whole thing, but just like a certain set of levels. And the way they did it basically rewrote the molecules of anything that was trapped in that level. Okay. One of those things being Ben. So Ben, the final reveal is that he is no longer Ben Reilly. He's now like a purple and green clad Spider-Man named Chasm.
Okay.
Now, what they ended up saying after this was that it was kind of their way of writing off Ben Reilly. They said, they don't know what the plan is for him way down the road, but for now, the character Ben Reilly was not going anywhere. Okay. And it needed to be changed at a fundamental level. So now he is it's pretty cool. Look up the pictures of Chasm. It's pretty cool. But no plans for him going forward. But the end of it, one of the epilogues, is Peter and MJ finally do move in together. But that sets us up for the beginning of this last one and the new run. And it's, what did Peter do? And another preview we got was kind of like a clandestine meeting between Tombstone and Peter Parker. And it's talking about man, the bug did this crazy stuff, and nobody knows what happened. But Peter Parker apparently did something so bad that the Fantastic Four hates him, Aunt May hates him, the Avengers hate him. And we see this page that it looks like he's just in the middle of a crater. No idea what happened.
Does MJ hate
him?
So
whereas, no idea. Not from what I've read. I mean, the issue before this one, she asked him to move in.
Okay.
So probably not.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I forget what I was gonna say. So where Nick Spencer's run took Spider-Man back to basics.
Yeah.
This is now taking this Beyond run took Spider-Man to rock bottom.
That's fair.
He's as low as humanly possible, which they've said before, but I think this time is really bad. The preview with Tombstone is pretty. I was like, wow. I'm like, Peter, what are you talking about? How are you being this crazy?
Cool.
But in general, like I said in our top 5, I think it is a good jumping on point, just because you need some background information. But I mean, the Spencer run didn't really do too much craziness.
No.
And the Beyond run was just a filler that, gave us a little bit of Ben Reilly stuff and made some changes. Created a badass new villain.
Stalled some time for this.
Yeah, the other epilogue, besides the Chasm reveal and MJ and Peter moving in, is Queen Goblin is going after Norman Osborn.
Oh,
she's
okay.
now burdened with all his sins and his power, and he's
Right.
just like a normal guy.
Right.
And so she already hated, Ashley Kafka hated Norman Osborn anyways.
Right.
And then now she's got his powers, his sins, and he's just hanging out, like being rich. So that's gonna be the the next big thing is those two, and what did Peter do?
What did Peter do? We'll find out on Wednesday, I guess.
We will find out on Wednesday.
Which could be today,
well,
if I put the video up on Wednesday.
That's true. Well, that was a very long-winded, so I'm happy for any of you guys who made it through this whole video, and I'll continue to try and get better at scripting them out for the next ones.
Well,
but
so
either way,
we can wrap it up with this. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. We are doing the 200 sub giveaway, where we are giving away a 9.8 King in Black #1 variant edition. If you leave your favorite Spider-Man villain as a comment down below, it'll be entered. You will be entered to win this giveaway when we hit 200 subs. You do have to be in the US to win. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell so you get a video every time that we put a new video out. And hope you enjoy Spider-Man #1.
For now, that's what you need to know.
For now, that's what you need to know. Until next time, we'll catch you guys later.